Dr. Mkhize, we appreciate you giving us your time here on SABC News. Thanks very much indeed for giving us your time, sir.
Thank you.
Now let's talk then about, what the significance today of what we're seeing is. Of course, so we've been hearing throughout the broadcast today and certainly throughout this ceremony that, the king has indeed entered the kraal. Talk to us about, the significance of this and what we're actually experiencing and seeing and what we're witnessing as we sit and watch today.
To the viewers, to all the South Africans, wherever the SABC 404 channel reaches, I am saying, or we are saying, and also as Umsamo Institute and as the people of South Africa, we are saying, Uphuma ilanga kwaZulu. That's what we are saying at the moment. Once the king has been taken out of that small kraal, within the kraal, which we as KwaZulu Enhlambelweni, then we will be actually celebrating with ingubo yesilo amabutho, where we will be saying seliphumile ilanga kwaZulu. What we are currently saying, kuphumilanga kwaZulu. Once it's done, seliphumile ilanga kwaZulu. Why I'm saying that is that entering the kraal can be anyone entering the kraal, but we must understand that the kraal is a foundation, is the fundamental base of an African person, isibaya. But within that isibaya, it is now that holy place where the person goes and annotated, talking to the ancestors, coming down to them, kneeling down to them, saying, promising them what steps will he take, and also how is he going to govern the people, not his people, but the people of his father. You remember King Zwelithini, when he used to say, the people of my father. So therefore, he is not now today being coronated to govern the people, his people, but the people of his father. So the significance of today is that we are seeing the culmination of the fight. I'm happy that you spoke to the legal expert before. He explained, he unpacked everything, where he said, look, there is that traditional Poison Act, of which our president acted upon, and he actually said there is a letter. So we are not actually appointing the king today. We are not actually coronating the king today.
Yeah.
It was done long time ago. It's only the ancestral and spiritual way of saying, here is the son, here is the man who has gone out for hunting, he has killed the Ipubesi, umfowabo wakwabo, and therefore now he has washed his hands using inyongo of the white bull, therefore his hands are clean, because killing the lion is like killing a human being. Therefore, here's your son, he's ready to take everything and govern his father's people.
But Mkhize, you talk about the fact that the coronation did already happen, but we've been differentiating, and perhaps this is where you need to come in just to clarify for us all of this. We've been hearing that this is a pre-coronation ceremony that then tells me that there's differentiation between the coronation and the pre-coronation. Is there a difference? Should the two be separated, and how are they separated, and how do we explain that separation of the two ceremonies then?
Yes, maybe the word coronation means an English word, the Western way.
Yeah.
The ceremony that we are seeing today, it was last done in 1954. Okay? Now, I'm happy that Nkosi Buthelezi and also the elders of the Royal Council have brought it back. Now, you see what is happening here. If you put a king to the throne, it is done in a traditional way, in an ancestral way. That's it. Inkosi ngesiZulu iyabekwa. Sesiyibekile inkosi. Hayi ukuthi siyibeka ngoba kuthanda thina, but he was chosen from birth. Uzalwe kakadeni ephume esiswini of the mother and the womb, who was actually, her lobola was paid by the nation. Here is the king. Now, we understand that now the government, which is another second way now of coronation, is going to come with a letter.
Yeah.
So it means that is now a recognition by the new system of which we are living in today, which is the government. But let's assume the government wasn't there. We were living the olden days. He was going to be put and also be put into the crown in our own traditional African way. Those are two different things.
So what's taking place at the moment, of course, as you can see from those visuals, the king has indeed exited the kraal at this stage. If you can talk us through it, Mkhize, what we're seeing now, I see the people are, and there is a Zulu term for it, you'll of course talk to us about that, where they're now, bending indeed to the king. I saw Mangosuthu Buthelezi, Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi as well, kneeling, in fact, to the king, and some of the maidens I saw as well bending and kneeling to the king. Let's talk about what's going on at this particular point, where we see the Zulu king having now exited the kraal, and as of course my colleague rightly said, that he is now outside the kraal and clad in those particular lion and leopard traditional regalia. Maybe talk to us about the significance of all of this and what we are indeed seeing at this time.
Yes, in my opinion, I did say that at the time when he was inside the kraal, we were saying sekuzophuma ilanga kwaZulu. Now we can proudly say that seliphumile ilanga kwaZulu. And you ask a question from Simbiwe, the anchor at Kwanongoma, who are the people who were actually there. From the visuals, I saw the king, I saw Nkosi Buthelezi, I saw also umntwana kwaminya uvananana, who was actually where we were told that he was going to lead Amabuto, and also it was mentioned, though I couldn't figure it out exactly, Inkosi Thanda Kampia Impia Yezintombi Mzimela of the Emazimeleni Emthunzini, and I could try to identify certain people there who were actually key people who are now going to, who have already now said on behalf of all the kings of KwaZulu from Jama, Senzangakhona, Shaka, and so on, up until your father, Ubejane Pumespriweni, now also who are your ancestors, and also the ancestors as a whole, we are now endorsing, we have endorsed, and also we have prayed to them that you become the biggest hand that will actually nurture and grow the people of KwaZulu and make them the greater part of South Africa, and also the greater part of the whole world with our own cultures and traditions. I can see now that he is there, and also as the anchor has already said that he doesn't think that it will be a long ceremony. Yes, I agree with that. It's a matter of now being introduced, saying that here is your king, fully endorsed, not by us or not by anyone, but by the ancestors, by his ancestors, the kings, the mothers and the fathers, abogogo nomkhulu, abokhokho amaxhegu nezalukazi. Here is he today, and the significance of what is happening today is that no one will actually one day dispute this and say we don't have a king, because if you say you don't have a king, therefore the one that will be saying he's a king, what sort of rituals and ceremonies have been done, because all of them, as I can see now, have been completed. To me, the last leg has been achieved, which was the entering of Mhlembekweni and now the crown. I think now for him to appear in front of the people is just a mere say of saying, South Africans, here it is, and I'm so delighted that also the government officials are there, which are actually representing the president and his cabinet, to say we endorse the whole process, and we are saying here is the certificate and here is the king.
Yeah, Baba, you use this very important word of endorse, and you've used it a number of times that, you know, he's had this particular endorsement. I want to talk about the importance of these endorsements that he has received, especially in light of, as we've seen and what we've mentioned, there being tensions, certainly. Not everybody in agreement, and not everybody speaking in one word. The importance of these endorsements so far that he has received, what do they signify, and do they hold a lot of weight when we are still dealing with court cases and issues on the side that are contesting essentially his role and his rite of passage in becoming the king of the Zulu nation?
You see, when you speak of endorsement, let's go back during our time, the primitive era, where the use of a spoken word, the oral word was the key. There was no literacy. There was no written word. The endorsement starts from there. The endorsement starts from the word of mouth, where I'm saying, so and so, you will be this and this and this. I am actually endorsing that. But now, the Western civilization came with literacy, which was actually saying, we have to write it down. We have to put it down. I'm excited that the court tried to put together these two endorsements, because when these court cases were happening, when the will letter was actually coming on with the signature where they claimed that it was false, that was the literacy side, that was the written word side. But now the issue is, let's go to the oral side, the cultural side. King Misuzulu was never endorsed as a king when he was born. He was endorsed as a king even before he was born, because his mother was actually paid lobola by the nation. That alone, whoever that was going to hear that we are going to pay a lobola for Mantombi, a lady from Swaziland, oh yes, so we conclude it is a woman who will actually pay the king. That was the endorsement, okay? Now, to dispute that, it means you are disputing the tradition, the culture, and also whatever that you can call it, the norms and values of that particular nation. Now, coming on the side now of the literacy side, where now we are talking about the written word, automatically, Cyril Ramaphosa, he actually issued the letter, and also in that letter, he said, look, this is the king. So the endorsement has come on both sides. So to me, this function of today doesn't mean anything. What it means is that all what we are doing today, we are celebrating the endorsement of what? Of this oral world, the spoken word, and the endorsement of literacy, of the literal word. We are here trying to emerge two worlds, the world of orality and literacy.
Yeah, but Mkhize, interestingly, you speak about the Swati royal family, and in fact, I see that our cameras are indeed focused on what I believe are some of the members of the Swati royal family. And I'd like to talk to the importance of, or rather the role of the Swati royal house in these particular proceedings. I mean, as you rightly say, given the fact that King Misuzulu is also a child of theirs from their royal home and their royal house and their royal family too. So one would then see, and we can see certainly from these visuals that we're looking at the moment, that this is certainly an important day for them too. Certainly one would then assume, could one then see this again as you know, a marriage, obviously not in the way that, in the traditional sense of it, but certainly a marriage of the two houses yet again. I mean, we saw of course you know, when the late king married someone from that royal house, of course that was an obvious marriage in a sense, but now we're having a situation where a child who's from both houses, essentially both royal houses, ascending and becoming the king of the Zulu. Maybe we should certainly talk to that, about the importance and significance of this particular marriage of the two houses yet again.
When we speak of Umsamo in our African tradition, we speak of a child coming from both the maternal and the paternal side. That's what Umsamo is. So therefore, you are not complete. You cannot be complete when we speak of your father only and excluding your mother. Even if when you go to Umsamo Uyopahla, you start by calling your paternal forefathers and you say, do also invite the maternal forefathers. Now, Misuzulu is coming from the royal family of Swazini and also coming from the royal family of Wazu. He is actually like his father. Let me give for instance, explaining to that. His father himself, King Zwelithini, his mother was from Eposini, Kwandwandwe. Now, if you go to and dig more on the Ndwandwe's family, you'll realize that it was King Shaka who actually attacked the Ndwandwes, and also Zwide ran and Zwide went to Swaziland. And when she was in Swaziland, she went with Uselwa, and Uselwa, which is now used KwaZulu, and say Winkosi Yose. So it starts all over again there. That's another interesting history which needs to unpack one day. So for the fact that the Swazis are here, it starts long back ago during the times of Shaka. So we have to say, look, we are actually here celebrating not the marriage of today, but the marriage that was actually formed and done long time ago, even before Dinizulu, before Petwayo or Dingani and so on, because it was actually dismantled by King Shaka himself when he attacked the Ndwandwes, who were actually Amakosi themselves.
Yeah, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I do understand that King Misuzulu was, in fact, brought up by that mother side of the family, the Swati side of the family, Wakuluso Amaswati. You know, what does that then mean for the Zulus in terms of the fact that here's a child who, as you say, from birth, before birth, had already been chosen as, you know, to be the next in line to ascend the throne. One might argue that, you know, we would want somebody who grew up with AmaZulu in the Zulu kingdom, who intimately understands the Zulu culture. Not to say that he doesn't understand the Zulu culture, but one might then say, and I wonder if this is maybe one of the arguments that are being put forward by some of those who are challenging his ascension to the throne. I mean, what's to be said about that, and its significance, really, if you can take us back as to why he was spending so much time in Swaziland?
It's a little bit of a history, yeah, and also a secret. When Misuzulu was born, his father had actually to deliver a tiger's skin. Kwafanele ukuthi athathe isikhumba sengwe asimukise eKhabonina okwakuyisekhweni likaZwelithini. Now, when a child is born, okay, let me start here. When the mother is pregnant, there are certain things that happen. For instance, if you go to King Zwelithini himself, he was propheted by a certain Zionist woman who came and said, one of these women, particularly this one, is going to bear a king. He was prophetic. So therefore, for him to be a king, it was not a mistake. Similarly with King Misuzulu as well. There are certain secrets that I can't divulge here, but I know that they actually happened. Hence, he had to go and grow at Swaziland. Akhulele Khaboni. We as Africans, we have got that problem. A child, when she or he is at the paternal side, she or he gets sick. We always conclude, therefore, according to Umsamo discussion, that ushukuthi lengane is pure saseKhaboni. So it was not by mistake that he grew up there. It had to happen. We will sometimes. As you see, what we are going to see now is the beginning of the new life of Misuzulu. And we are going now to start seeing, whoa, no wonder Misuzulu had to grow up in Swaziland. This is the reason, hence this is why he's doing 1, 2, 3. As we know, as all of us, whether you are paid Sotho, Zulu, whatever the case may be, I'm talking about something that is very general. where you find them and say, I had to go and grow up on my maternal side.
Yeah.
So it depends on the secrets that happens there, and also certain kids, certain rituals need to be performed in order to become a man and a woman of the future. So the significance of now bringing, I won't be surprised that if Misuzulu before this function, you wouldn't have even gone to Swaziland and spent some couple of a week or days or whatever before he comes here. But that is part of the secret of the real thing.
Yeah. Mkhize, let's pause for a little bit. Please stay with us. We're going to throw it back to our senior reporter, VVO Mkhize, who's certainly on the ground for us at the palace in Nongoma. There's been a lot happening while we have been talking to Mkhize. VVO, take us through what's happening at the moment. I did see a group of men. I'm not sure if it's the Amabuto sort of heading somewhere, and we do understand that at some point the king will be addressing what I'll say are his subjects, and I suppose that's the correct terminology to use at this particular time. When is that set to happen, and take us through what's happening now and maybe the rest of the program of what's then expected?
Well, indeed, Flo, more and more of those Amabutho are arriving here at Kwakhangela Mankengane Royal Palace. But allow me, Flo, to engage a few of the people who are in attendance here today, who have been with us for quite some time, since the early hours of the morning, some of them. Boma, asinibingelele sinamukele indabeni. Sibuze nje ukuthi lolu suku ngiyabona kade nihleli la phansi nilindile. Lusho ukuthini kunini?
Usuku lusho olukhulu kithi kade sayilinda lempi ukuthi iyofika nini, kodwa ke ngamandla kaNkulunkulu kwagcina sekwenzekile. Sithi siyabonga kakhulu.
Mangabe ubuka nje ukugcwala kwabantu mabevunulile becula kuhlatshelelwa kumnandi, kukwenza uzizwe kanjani ngokubona nje lengqophamlando eyenzakala namhlanje phambi kwakho?
Ngizizwa ngikhululekile kakhulu, angazi ngachaza ngithini. Ngikhululeke kakhulu ngibona ukuthi hayi asilahlekile, sisekhona impela mntanami. Ngendlela abantwana engibabona bejabule ngayo, bevunule ngayo nomama, ngiyabona ukuthi hayi ayipheli lendlu. Yebo ngane yami.
Kusekhona yini kodwa ukudideka ngasohlangothini lwabantu nje baseNingizimu Afrika, ngoba uzokhumbula phela ukuthi kukhona abanye indlunkulu abathi cha bona bahambisani nokuthi Silo uMisuzulu kube nguyena ongena esihlalweni, baphakamise lenye igama labo. Ngicabanga ukuthi izinsukwini ezimbili ezedlule amanye amalungu asendlunkulu aphakamise igama likaMntwana obuzabazi ukuthi kube nguyena ongena kulesihlalo. Kepha namhlanje ngiyabona ukuthi niphume ngobuningi benu ukuzokweseka lo mcimbi weSilo uMisuzulu. Ngabe kusekhona nokudideka emphakathini mawubheka lezi nqushunqushu ezenzakalayo ngaphakathi endlunkulu?
Ngabeka ngithi akukho ukudideka, ngoba ukube kusadidekiwe ngaba abantu abangake manje, ngoba siyabona ukuthi hayi inqubekela phambili ihambe yahamba kwaze kwavuleka. Akukho ukudideka, akukho impela. Ongathi uyadideka ulahlekile.
Nawe sithathe leli thuba sikubingelele sikwamukele indabeni, bese siyakubuza ukuthi mhlasimbe iyiphi into oyilindele uma ngabe iSilo sesikhuluma, njengoba kulindeleke ukuthi sethule nje inkulumo kubona bonke labantu abazothamela lo msebenzi omkhulu kangaka?
Okulindele ukuthi sethule iSilo ukuthi sibonge ukuthi ukuthi abantu baphume kangakanani beseseka, sibone ukuthi silahlekile. Yabona nje sibe nenkuthalo ukuthi sisilangazelele yabo kukho konke, sihamba naso indlela yonke nje, asiphambuke ndawo.
Uma ubheka udaba lwesiko lwesiko lwesintu kakhulukazi la kwaZulu, uma ngabe ubona amatshitshe egcwele nezinsizwa eqhamuka emabuthweni nazo sihlangene, kukunika siphi isithombe njengesakhamuzi salabo?
Kukunika nje isithombe esihle ukuthi intsha ikhathalela ukuthi indlu yakwaZulu ukuthi bengaphume endleleni nje. Nami ngizwa nje nginenkuthalo enkulu mangibona intsha ingaka ukuthi nje imisele kukho konke.
Sesisithi isikhathi nilindile la, anikazi uhamba ngaphambi kokuba iSilo sekhuluma?
Yebo, sisazi ukuhamba singakakhulumi iSilo, silindele ukuthi sikhulume sizwe ukuthi sithini.
Siyabonga esikhathini. Cool. Well, Flo, there you have it. Those are just some of the, people who have come out here in their numbers to attend this crucial, ceremony that is unfolding. And we believe that the king has just left the kraal where he is at the Kwakhangela Mankengane Royal Palace. What is basically being said here, Flo, is what has been said all along by the people who are in attendance to this event. They are saying that it pleases them to see that the nation is still very much united in the sense of the cultural beliefs, as well as the fact that they endorse King Misuzulu kaZwelithini as the rightful heir to the throne. The women that we spoke to earlier on saying that when they see the thousands of people who are in attendance here, they are pleased, because it gives an indication that they are not lost in terms of who really should be the one that is basically the king of AmaZulu nation. We will continue to be here on the ground and monitor whatever that is going to be happening from this part of the palace where we are, because we understand that once the king is done with the processes unfolding esibayeni, he will then make his way together with the thousands of Amabutho who are basically accompanying him as he's busy conducting that process yokungena esibayeni, Flo.
Yeah, I see that the podium is being prepared then for the king to then address us. And what is the expectation then, from his subjects today of, what the king would then be giving as a message? No doubt thanking those who have supported him, but also which was raised was how he would then be dealing with some of those tensions, and if he would be a unifying force within the royal family. What is that expectation today as he does then take to the podium and address the Zulu nation?
There's no doubt, Flo, that King Misuzulu kaZwelithini is going to speak about the issue of unity, not only in the royal household that is facing these divisions, but amongst the AmaZulu nation as a whole. Because his father, the late king, kaZwelithini, was known for preaching unity, was known for preaching social cohesion amongst different races of the country. So we are expecting him to speak to some of those aspects as these thousands of people continue to wait, Flo. Some of them have been here since the early hours of the morning when we arrived. They continue to be jovial, they continue to be excited, and they are saying that it is exciting for them to be part of this, because indeed history is being registered on this day, Flo.
All right, thanks, Impia. We'll come back to you in a short while. Let me bring you in Mkhize, Dr. VVO Mkhize, still with us then this afternoon, of course, unpacking for us and giving us some cultural expertise as, of course, we witnessed the pre-coronation ceremony of the Zulu King Misuzulu. I mean, when we look at King Misuzulu, and we're talking about the fact that there are these tensions that no doubt have played out quite publicly, the fact that there's these court cases, there's this question, of course, of the type of king that we're likely to see. Of course, when you are a king, and we could even look back in the days of Shaka Zulu, who, when we look at his image, it might have been sometimes perceived as being rather violent, but certainly heroic. There needs to be certain, adjectives that are attached to one's kingship, and certainly one wonders if, when we're talking about King Misuzulu, will we see a king who then plays this role of a unifying force? But then, off air, I was also just wondering about whether, in some instances, some people don't really want unity, and where the king would then have to put his foot down and be solid in terms of how we then move forward. I mean, what type of a kingdom do you think that, he will then be leading, and what type of a king do you think Misuzulu will certainly be? Will he be a force in terms of being unifying, or be a force that can be quite harsh, as we have seen historically from some of the Zulu kings?
I think we have to be realistic here if we want to help Misuzulu and also the royal family, and also help ourselves as AmaZulu as well as South Africans as a whole. To unify, yes, it's good. To create peace, yes, it's good. But we have to look back into the origination of all what is happening today. Any black person, any African person, he knows exactly that all the incidents or all what happens in the present has got the origin from the past. And it is that past that needs to be interrogated and that very past to be cleansed. I think his father, he did a good work, yes, but I think maybe he didn't concentrate on the cleansing of all what happened. Let me give you an example. If you kill your own brother with a spear and the blood gets spilled in the yard or in the crop, there should be some misfortunes in that family. King Shaka actually killed his brother, who was an heir, Siguja, and nothing was done. Now the history repeated itself. He was killed by his own brothers, by the same spear, in the same kraal. The blood was spilled there. No cleansing was actually done. And it continued and so on. If you read the history of the Zulu kings, now there's been fights, a brother killing a brother, and so on and so on and so on and so on and so on. Now, we have to start saying, why, first of all these chaos had to happen. One of the people said a very good thing here, saying that, look, if Smagade didn't do what he did, he's the oldest brother, he's the elderly brother of Misuzulu. He was going to be part of this ceremony. He was going to be ubhuti umfwabo ozokwaluleka ayale umfwabo mfowethu kwenziwa kanje kanje. The eldest brother.
Yeah.
But he decided to take the other way around. The question is, why? And also, why all these court cases and so on? Because if you look at Ndlogombane himself as well, the very same thing happened to him. So it means now we are going to have recurring incidents where whenever the king passes away, we know there will be a fight.
Yeah.
The king passes away, there will be a fight. Why are we not finding a way of actually stopping that? There is a way. It is a cleansing. If anything has happened in a family which is actually bad, we always say, let's do the cleansing of our ancestors and so on. So for Misuzulu, for me, before he actually tries to unify or create peace, or maybe to make that be part of that unification and the peacemaking, he must go back and say, this is what my forefathers didn't do. This is what my own father didn't do. How can I do it? Look, King Mangosu Buthelezi himself, as an African, as Umzulu, has said it many a times to the ANC and said, what does he mean? What does he mean? Doesn't that mean that it's coming from an elderly person? That if we want this country to be in the good hands and to be run properly, so no one wants to back into that. So Misuzulu, the first primary thing that he has to do is to do that. That's what I would actually advise as Bezindaba from Umsamo Institute and the Sportsman's Assembly.
Yeah, you know, we mentioned and we've been talking about the fact that this is someone that has been endorsed even before he was born. So what is the point of all these challenges? I would assume, you know, you talk about his brother, that people like his brother would have known that this is the person who would then ultimately be taking over. Why suddenly all these challenges? I mean, we saw Prince Makate forcefully, you know, challenging and sort of showing himself as being someone who is willing to challenge this issue of the throne at the time when he entered Isibaya, and making it such a big issue that he has entered the Isibaya. I mean, also on a level of you know, respectfulness. I mean, that also shows just where he is in terms of respecting his younger brother, who, as you say, he should have supported. But why indeed are we having these particular challenges when it should have been known from long ago that this is the person ultimately who will be ascending to this throne?
It was known.
Yeah.
As I've already alluded to,
yeah,
that where is it coming from? But Maybe. You know, I always say in a family, somebody gets born as a key to come and solve the problems. Today, you are standing in front of that microphone. I'm talking to you. Maybe you were born for what you are doing. You were born to address the nation on this particular day. And therefore, I, as Mkhize as well, I was born maybe to come and address the nation on this particular day. Each and every person is born with a particular responsibility. Maybe the ancestors, even before Umvelingangi, knew that such occurrences will happen in the Zulu nation. But no one will actually solve it. But there will be this young man who will carry the burden, who will be named Misuzulu, and they will fight him. And also after fighting him, he will solve the problem. Remember the Bible, they kept on saying, the Messiah is coming. They kept on saying, who is the Messiah? When the Messiah came, he came and he denied that he's a Messiah, but he solved the Abafaris.
Yeah, and how do we solve the challenges now? I mean, in the past, when you're reading about the history of the Zulu kingdom, some of these challenges were dealt with through, shedding of blood. Certainly, this is not what we can do at this point, and there needs to be better ways of addressing these sort of challenges, and while still looking historically. I mean, even if we look at Shaka Zulu, he remains, locked in obscurity especially when it comes to the issue of his assassination, even though he's one of the most important historical figures in the world, I would say, in the world. But how are those problems solved then, which obviously, as I say, there was bloodshed involved, that can help in terms of solving the problems currently and now? Because I wonder if the issue of talking it out will solve some of these challenges and problems that King Misuzulu is certainly entering into at this time as we speak.
You know the problem with Ndlunkulu, which worries me? The Ndlunkulu seems to have advisors and seems to have committee, seems to have abelapi, who are not family members.
Yeah,
that's my worrying factor. Now, Misuzulu is fortunate that he is surrounded by the elders. Izingwevu. He has Nkosi Buthelezi.
Yeah.
He has Ugwabini. He has next to him Philemon Okafihlinqindi. He has Mdletshe, and he have the two not Abo Gogo, I think Abo Khulubake. The other one is about 98. The other one is close to 100 years. And he has his mothers, Abo Ndlunkulu. Okay, fine, we can take them as secondary. Now, I think he must engage these people. And when he engages these people, they must actually listen to him what he wants to do and actually advise and help him on what needs to be done. To me, fine, we are living in a highly religious world or country, but we have to go back to our roots and say, if this used to happen, how was it actually get sorted out? So all what I'm saying is that he must use the brains that are closer and next to him, which are only and only family members. He mustn't actually go to Mkhize. Mkhize is not Zulu, and expect Mkhize to come with a solution, which now I think it has actually troubled for a long time the Ndlunkulu. As I'm speaking to you now, there are so many abalandeli beBhodwe who would like to align themselves with Ndlunkulu, with Ndlunkulu, for their own privilege purposes. Some of them, they will be coming for political reasons. Some of them will be coming for patronizing reasons. So he will have to be very careful about that, not to be patronized.
Yeah.
Look very carefully at people who are coming for privileges and say, look, I am actually standing on my point. These are my principles, so that if he passes, if he dies, leaves the world, we must know that this was his either tough legacy, of which we can blame him on that, or maybe celebrate it, or maybe we would say these were his weaknesses, or his threats.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't imagine that even after that, that those who were against him within the family would, you know, just suddenly sort of accept him and be happy to have him as the king. How does he then surpass that? I mean, certainly he can't, you know, exclude them in the royal family. They are in the royal family, and they are royals too in their own rights. How should he then deal with those issues of those tensions going forward? Because some of these people might never, in actual fact, decide that they want to accept him and you know, continue as it were.
If you are a born leader, any person that has spoken bad about me, if he comes to me, I will actually forgive that person. If you are a born leader, unless if you are not a born leader. That's what I'm trying to say. So if Misuzulu was actually a born leader and also was meant to be a leader, leaders are the people who actually believes in their principles. They have their own principles. It's people who actually forgives people who comes in front of them and kneel down and say, I have done wrong. Let me tell you now, I can actually say specifically that those who were opposing him, they will come to him. And some of them, they will actually say who were actually funding us for doing this. Because if you look into the money that has been spent, I mean, if you go to court, you don't just go to court anyhow or whatever and so on. One. Two, you don't just do a celebration or whatever the case may be. I don't want to mention names, but there is money involved. Who are the people who were funding that? So they will come back to him and say, I apologize. Or no, maybe not to apologize, but look, please, let's put aside these issues.
Yeah. Not
that we didn't know what we were doing, but we were actually doing what we were asked to do. So a lot of truth will actually come out. If he is a true leader and he is a true man of the ancestors and of God, he will forgive those people. He will unite his brothers and sisters and the coming generations. He will go to all his mothers on Ndlunkulu and say, Ma, ngiyaxolisa. Ma, ngonile kuwena. Ma, ngicela ungikhulise. Ma, uma kuwukuthi kukhona la ngiphambuke khona, ngicela ungitshele manje. Sihlambuluke. I think maybe an inhlambuluko will have to be done after this, because if there has been a noise in a family, that noise needs to be cleansed.
All right, VVO Mkhize, let's go back to the ceremony. Please stay with us. I do understand that King Misuzulu has indeed, at this time, gotten ready to address his subjects.